Welcome back to Technology Blows, everybody. This is part 2 of our episodes on cash registers, those beautiful mechanical narcs that keep us shifty workers from skimming our boss's rightful profits. And back with me, of course, is Daniel Ryan. Say hello, Daniel.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Dan. I am so excited to be back. I have had to stop myself from looking up more about cash registers all week because no spoilers.
Thank you for doing that. And trust me, you're going to be glad you did because this guy is a whole season of Game of Thrones built is of worth of spoilers built into this guy's life.
So everyone dies at the end. Got it.
Yeah. So in part 1, we learned about James Ritty, the paranoid bar owner who invented cash registers, and then John Henry Patterson, the amateur fiveologist who was chosen by God to industrialize the cash register. By the time Patterson is done, cash registers are going to be in basically every store, and it's going to feel like they always were. As one biographer puts it, quote, "Now, when even a peanut and popcorn vendor considers himself ill-equipped for business without a cash register, when the little bell rings the length and breadth of continents, it is hard to realize how slow the commercial world was to recognize an imperative necessity."
Oh.
This biographer writes as if the invention of the cash register created the market for peanuts and popcorn somehow. And they still write this way, right? So you'll get like Walter. Have you ever read a Walter Isaacson? He writes these big biographies of like Einstein or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. He wrote one on. He writes these like great man biographies about people who invent things or think of things. And it's always like, sure, now Steve Jobs' foresight is obvious, but at the time it took genius to see this mass unsatisfied need for a cell phone that you can scroll Reddit from, right? But that's like not how it works. John Patterson didn't just discover that people needed cash registers like a doctor discovering a new illness. He used a sales force larger than the army of a small warlord to make people need cash registers, right? So now that he's done that, he's done sowing the field, and he's going to be damned if he lets somebody else harvest that field. So that's what we're going to talk about in part 2. Because John Patterson is not one of these industrialists who believes competition is healthy or necessary. As early as 1888, he writes in the company magazine, "We have no serious competitors yet, and we do not propose to have any formidable ones if we can help it. But before any of the weak ones get strong, we must crush them out."
Good. Turning to violence right away. That sounds about right.
Yeah, we're gonna crush them like a
demo cash register that isn't working.
There's lots of ways to crush your competitors. One of the ways is like garden variety buyouts, right? You just have more money than them, you buy them out. That's what everybody does. But that's not the whole picture. Another thing they do is every time a competitor brings a new model of cash register to market, National Cash Register will buy one of that model from the competitor and take it apart and look for anything they can sue for patent infringement over.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sort.
Yes. So, and they're really ahead of their time with it. Like we're familiar with this move now, but like in this time, of course, patent litigation is nothing new in the late 1800s. Thomas Edison is already suing the piss out of all his competition. But Patterson is really the first guy to like form a whole department to search for potential patent claims in the competitor's product, and so that they can sue over, which is called the Opposition Department. That's the name of their
nice. That's very dystopian.
Department. So the Opposition Department starts off doing this patent trolling, but very quickly it becomes the general department of just wiping other companies off the map. So the Opposition Department adopts other clever strategies for outsmarting the competition, such as doing hella crimes.
What kind of crimes, though? Like, are they just straight up like murdering all the other company's salespeople in the street?
Well, funny you should ask. but let's start with the vanilla crimes. So one kind of thing they'll do is if a competitor starts to get some sales, they'll design a model of cash register that looks exactly like the new competitor's model with the exact same features and sell it for like 10 to 20% less.
Of course.
Yeah. They call these copycat models that they make, they call knocker models. And they're absolutely brazen about this. Their catalog, if you look at a National Cash Register catalog from this period, they'll have their knocker model right next to the competitor model that it's a copy of, with the identical feature list beneath, and then the prices showing the National Cash Register's 20% less. They're like not trying to hide it.
And I assume that they're hoping that the competitors don't start patent trolling them back for like
Uh,
blatant copyright infringement or something like that.
Yeah, I think they're careful about they're using their own mechanics inside. Like
Okay.
they're using their own designs inside the machine, but they make it look like the other
Hmm.
one, and they try. I think they may be copying some of their patented features, but they rarely get sued over it because everybody knows National Cash Register has an entire opposition department full of lawyers who will just drive them into the ground. This is a crime because it violates the Sherman Antitrust Act, and that's not just my opinion, but we'll get to who else's opinion that is later in the episode. Uh, Another fun crime the opposition department gets up to is they have a roster of what they call special men.
Ooh.
The special men are like 007, but instead of a license to kill, they have a license to be a complete shitbag to salesmen from other cash register companies. They'll follow the competitor's salesmen from door to door, trying to get their orders canceled. Like the competitors will sell a bunch of cash registers, and then Nationals salesmen will walk right in after they leave and be like, what did they just sell you? We'll sell you the same exact thing, but for 10% less if you cancel your order now. Which rules? They are trained, the special men are trained to do stuff like they know on a given competitor's model that if you like press these three buttons at the same time while opening and shutting the cash drawer, you can get the register to ring up the wrong amount.
Konami code for cash registers.
Yes, they know all the Konami codes. They're like they'll walk into somebody's store and be like, I see you have the like Burgett and Reeves cash register model 9100. Watch this, and they'll like press three keys at the same time, and they'll do like up down down BA, and then the drawer will pop open, but nothing will ring up, and they're like, see, national cash registers are secure. You should buy some of ours instead. And then they'll also just make straight up physical threats. They'll like corner the other company's salespeople in an alley and threaten them to get out of this neighborhood. They bribe freight agents to hold up shipments. They'll sneak into competitors' warehouses and pour sand in their machines.
Wow. Keep it classy.
And this is how, by 1902, National Cash Register accumulates a stunning, absolutely impossible to achieve without committing just limitless amounts of crime, 95% market share.
Wow.
Yeah. You don't get that legally.
No, you do not.
You don't get
We,
that by just selling a good product.
yeah, I'm having flashbacks to Internet Explorer.
Right. What were they doing? They were like they were bundling IE with computers, right? So anytime
Yeah.
you bought a computer, it came with IE on it.
Yeah.
But they weren't cornering the Mozilla people in an alley and threatening them with lead pipes.
That we know of.
Yeah, right. That's true. So that's 1902, 95% market share. Pretty amazing. Also by 1902, the National Cash Register Factory has, with its educational programs and its Olmsted gardens and, ventilation, has become a nationally famous model for other industrialists to copy. And a big part of that, I said fart. I'm leaving that in. And a big part of that model that they're copying is that they have free medical care for employees. They're basically like running a walk-in clinic out of the factory infirmary. You can come get your eyes checked, you can get your teeth checked, get a physical, all for free because Patterson wants all his employees healthy. They've even gotten an x-ray machine there, which
Ooh,
is like cutting edge
fancy.
technology. You know, and like they're not the first company to have medical facilities at a workplace. But Patterson is doing something really novel here because of the strategy behind why he has the medical facility. You know, a coal mine owner might have an infirmary on site just because like dead miners cost money to replace. But as one Patterson biographer says, quote, he thought of the body purely as a machine. A machine is valuable only as it is efficient. Without health, the human body cannot be efficient. Therefore, he wanted a man to be in full control of himself. Everything that he did and advocated had human efficiency as its end. So we can't say like John Patterson invented employer-provided health insurance. That came later, but he did invent an important precursor of employer-provided health insurance, which is the attitude that keeping workers healthy is just sound business. It's like keeping gears oiled and floors clean. It just makes sense. Makes sense for the bottom line,
He would
right?
have loved handing out Fitbits and
Oh my
discovering
fucking
biohacking.
God. He would have had a mandatory gym discount program.
Oh, yeah.
Each worker at the NCR factory was regularly weighed, and if he was underweight, he was expected to go to the infirmary every morning between 9 and 10 o'clock to receive malted milk until he was back to a healthy weight.
Oh,
I just saw you gag.
malted milk is disgusting. My parents were obsessed with it when I was a kid. They wouldn't let us have chocolate milk because that had sugar in it, and sugar is how the devil gets inside of you or something. But
That's
malted
correct.
milk was for some reason fine, and oh my God, it is disgusting. I don't know what it is about that taste. It is awful to me
You wouldn't have wanted to work at NCR
for
because
so many
between 9 and
reasons.
10 o'clock, you'd have had to drink your daily malted milk. If you didn't show up, they would like mark it on your card and you'd get in trouble with your manager.
Wow.
Have you ever worked at a tech company where they have free malted milk in the break room?
Not malted milk, no. Kale chips, on the other hand.
Yes. And kombucha.
Oof, yeah. That is also not a thing I am a fan of putting in my face.
Yeah, no thanks. So workers at National Cash Register have access to a level of medical care that no other working class people in Dayton, Ohio in the early 1900s could possibly get, right? They have healthy teeth, healthy eyes, healthy diets, and that's good. Like they're doing a good thing here, like materially
Yeah.
for utilitarian reasons, right? But still, like their workers are materially better off for this.
The end result so far is a good thing, but I feel like there's a yet coming.
Well, it reinforces the idea that if you work for John Patterson, he owns your body.
Creepy.
So one time, a blacksmith comes into the NCR infirmary to be examined for by the doctors, and the doctor diagnoses him with gonorrhea, and tells him he's going to have one of his eyes taken out. And then the doctor goes ahead and tells John Patterson all about this. He's like, by the way, your blacksmith who works for you has gonorrhea and he has to have his eye taken out.
So no doctor-patient confidentiality going on here.
Yeah, John Patterson definitely did not invent fucking HIPAA. We can say that much. And when Patterson finds out that one of his workers has contracted gonorrhea, he flies into a rage. He's like, how can National Cash Register continue to call itself the model factory if boys entering its employ are open to contamination of the worst sort? And he institutes a policy that any new hire must be tested for VD, and if they're infected, then they don't get to work at National Cash Register.
Wow. So he invented slut shaming, is what I'm hearing.
I mean, he may have industrialized slut shaming.
That's true. That had been around for a while.
I think the Catholics invented that one. I'm not sure. I have to go to the books. So it's a mixed bag, right? Working in National Cash Register, you get to have teeth, you get to have eyes, but really you're just leasing them from John Patterson. But if John Patterson treats his employees' bodies as just so much machinery to be maintained and optimized, let it never be said that he treats his own body any differently. The man is pathologically obsessed with keeping his body in perfect working order. He's not a hypochondriac exactly. He's not like anxious that he's sick all the time, but something in him is always driving him to like perceive weakness in his body and crush it out like the competition of National Cash Register. For example, on the advice of his doctor, he takes 4 or 5 baths a day.
I was wondering when we were going to come back to the baths.
Oh yes, we got to the baths. He'll have his doctor tell him exactly what temperature the bath should be to the degree and how long he should stay in to the minute. And then if he ever feels bad during the day, he'll be like, oh, it must have been that 11th minute I stayed in my 10-minute bath, which should tell you that he is not seeing, real doctors. Because if you go to a doctor and say, doc, I'm worried I'm making myself sick by taking my 5th bath of the day at 115 degrees instead of 112 degrees. A fake doctor will be like, oh, that's very possible, Mr. Patterson. And if you'd like, I can build you a comprehensive bath plan with everything tuned to your unique chemical biorhythm, right? A real doctor will be like, did you just say 5th bath? What the hell, man?
He also seems like the sort who would have had like a nice little notebook in which he wrote down the details of his baths to make sure that he was going according to plan.
100%. Yeah, I wish we had that.
I'd look at that exhibit in a museum.
Absolutely, he's taking notes on all of this, and he thinks he's got something, right? He thinks this is what's making his body work. He's also a huge weirdo about food. He doesn't eat pepper because he's been told that pepper is bad for the stomach lining.
Mm.
He eats almost no vegetables. His biographer says, quote, Mr. Patterson's diet was extraordinary and was largely of his own devising. From 1912 to 1917, he ate no meat at all. He ate many baked potatoes. Far too many, the physicians say.
The real doctors who would have told him to get out of the bath.
I love the idea that the biographer went to talk to one of Patterson's doctors, and the doctor was like, okay, if you say nothing else about this man in your biography, you have to tell them about the baked potatoes.
Amazing.
I don't know how he's still alive. And this is Ohio at the turn of the century. A 3 potato day is standard.
And baked potatoes without pepper? Like was he just eating like bland ass cardboard tasting baked potatoes?
Just pop them. He was like Gaston, but with potatoes instead of eggs. It's like, I don't know, man. If you're dragging ass in the afternoon, it might not be the 11th minute in the bath. It might be the 11th baked potato you had for lunch.
Oh, man.
At one point, Patterson is traveling in Europe, and the Prussian bodybuilder personal trainer that he travels everywhere with puts him in touch with this English health guru called Charles Palmer. And I know what you're thinking. And yes, by health guru, I do mean con man.
Of course.
Of course. That's what that means in the early 1800s. And still.
And today.
And today, Charles Palmer is like traveling everywhere with John Patterson, prescribing him all sorts of extreme health regimens all the time. And Patterson, being the kind of guy he is, before long, he's insisting that all National Cash Register executives follow the Charles Palmer routine too. They have to get to the factory at 5 a.m. They all do calisthenics together, take a very specific temperature bath, get a rub down.
How many bathtubs did they have at this factory? I have logistical questions. I'm just imagining like one entire floor. Like elevators don't go to the 13th floor. The 13th floor is actually just full of bathtubs.
Yeah, the National Cash Register boardroom looks like that scene from The Matrix. One of the things Charles Palmer introduces at NCR is mandatory daily horseback riding. Everybody has to ride horses around Dayton together every morning, which I can absolutely imagine Elon Musk doing, but with skateboarding.
Yeah. I mean, that explains one of the baths, because horses don't smell great.
Yeah. It makes sense to have at least one bath.
At least one.
Yeah. Two might be a little too much. Five is definitely way too much. He would like be in a meeting and he'd be like, "Why don't you bring me a nice glass of warm spring water?" And his assistant would bring it to him, and he would like stop the meeting and take a swig of it and just like visibly enjoy it and be like, Doesn't everybody think that it would be good if everyone in the room also had some warm water? And they'd all look at each other like, I mean, maybe. And then a couple seconds later, he'd be like, "Don't you think it would be good if everyone in the room also had some warm water?" And so they like would all have to get up and go get some and come back and all drink it together before the meeting could proceed.
I'm gonna try this next time I'm in a meeting that's just like dragging on a little bit, is just force everyone to go get some water.
As Charles Palmer gets more power within National Cash Register, he starts telling John Patterson that he has a technique to read people's character from the shape of their faces.
Oh dear.
Like he can look at somebody's face and tell whether they're a liar or a drunk or lazy by like the size of their forehead and the set of their jaw.
Yikes.
And of course, Patterson eats this up. He's like, "Marvelous. I'll have you read the faces of my executives, then I'll fire the ones with bad characters." Which brings us to the firings. We talked about this briefly in part one, but John Patterson will fire any executive for any reason. The man does not give a shit. He'll be like, "My personal trainer thinks you have liar's cheekbones. You're fired." Or, I saw you almost fall off a horse once. Get out of here, Charles Kettering. Go give humanity lead poisoning, bitch." At one point, Patterson bans butter, coffee, and salt from all sales meetings. And his vice president, Hugh Chalmers, who is an NCR lifer who worked his way up from office boy, goes against this. He's like, "Well, you can't not have coffee at sales meetings, man. That's
It's a fair
like,
point.
it's a sales meeting. Come on." He's immediately fired. And he vows revenge. He tells the newspapers, "I will not be even with the old man till I put him behind bars."
Oh.
And I want to come back to the mallet story a bit here because there's more to the mallet story than I told you at first. So listeners will hopefully remember from part one, Patterson's giving a tour. He tells the tour group, these machines are all assembled and ready to ship. And then he goes to demo one and it has a broken key. So he goes fucking Office Space on the thing with a mallet. What I didn't mention before is the broken key on that register had already been found by a quality control guy. Somebody had tested it, found the key was broken, and then like gone out on lunch break and he was going to come back and fix it later before the machines shipped. Patterson didn't know any of this. So when he smashes the machine up, he's not, righteously angry that his workers let a defective machine through his production line. He's just embarrassed.
And he's just ruining the poor QA guy's day.
Yeah, I mean, and presumably he fired him afterwards, so that
Just
ruined
to
his
make it
day
worse.
even more. Yeah. Yeah, I have to imagine this QC guy coming back from lunch and being like rolling up his sleeves like, "All right, time to figure out what's wrong with that broken key. Well, what the fuck, John?" Now, as arbitrary as John Patterson's tantrums and firings seem, there was something of a strategy behind them. Patterson once told a close confidant, "When we get to the point where all depends on one man, let's fire him." So the firings are partly a strategy to keep those cash registers flowing, independent of any one person. Partly simple egomania, but partly strategic. Because the one man who can't be sacrificed in the NCR system
He's
is
him.
John Patterson.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. He's got his name at the top of the pyramid. What are you going to do? Chop the top of the pyramid off?
That would be ridiculous.
He's made National Cash Register into a system not just for selling cash registers. It's a system for carrying out John Patterson's divine mandate to sell cash registers. And if Patterson doesn't get to be the godhead, then nobody gets to make cash registers. So that brings us to May 1901. 4 metal molders in the NCR factory were fired because they were doing labor agitation. The union wants them hired back. Patterson says, absolutely not. You can't make me hire somebody I don't want to hire. No deal. So the molders union goes on strike, and then the metal polishers union goes on strike in solidarity, which later was made illegal. You can't have solidarity strikes in the U.S. now, which is fucking stupid.
Boo.
And it's starting to look like even more unions are going to strike. And so Patterson just preemptively shuts down his factories and locks out all 2,400 of his employees and demands that they abandon their unions if they want to come back to work for him.
Oof.
Yeah. It cripples the entire economy of Dayton. And we get to see a perfect case study in why workers need unions, no matter how generous the bosses seem like they are. NCR workers and their families have been getting health care through the company. They don't have health care anymore. A lot of workers have bought houses through a building and loan program. Where they pool their paychecks to finance a house, and then they make installment payments out of their paychecks. No lockout means no income. They start to lose their homes. So all this stuff that made the NCR factory famous as like a progressive haven for workers was never about employee welfare. And I would say it wasn't even really about efficiency. Patterson was just willing to grant all of these benefits to his workers because it kept their hands grafted to the machinery, you know?
Yeah. Make it hurt if they ever try to leave.
Exactly. Because the instant they try to collectively bargain, to give him back some orders of their own, they're out on the streets. During the lockout, Patterson tells the newspapers that he had some important manufacturer visiting the NCR factory to learn about how giving your factory workers health benefits and stuff can actually be good for business, because he was going to do it at his own factory. But quoting Patterson now, when he learned that despite our labors in their behalf and the fairness with which we had treated them, a part of our workers had gone on strike, he abandoned his project.
Of course.
Now, do I believe this happened? No. I don't know. John Patterson, if you're listening, come on the show, tell me I'm wrong. But what he means by it is very real. The only way for workers to achieve better conditions is to wait patiently for the bosses to bestow better conditions. And if they do anything else, it's an inversion of the natural order. They've flipped the great pyramid of capitalism, and a worker who rejects the pyramid is no better to Patterson than a one-eyed blacksmith with gonorrhea or a cash register with a broken key.
How dare they?
So in 1912, all these anti-competitive sales practices finally catch up with John Patterson, because in 1912, as crazy as it sounds now, the U.S. actually enforced its antitrust laws.
What?
I know.
Sounds fake.
Yeah. I didn't believe it either. I read a bunch of Wikipedia pages, and it turns out we actually have antitrust laws, and they used to be enforced.
Who knew?
Just the previous year in 1911, the Supreme Court had actually ruled that the market share of John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company was so high that it proved Standard Oil was a monopoly. And they ordered Standard Oil to break itself up into 34 different companies. Which fucking rules.
How high was it? That does fucking rule.
I don't know what their market share was, but I think it was less than 95%.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. Don't quote me on that, but that's crazy that was like cited as evidence by the Supreme Court. So in this period, antitrust prosecution actually has teeth. And in 1912, Patterson and over 20 other NCR officials are found guilty of criminal violations of the Sherman Antitrust Act. Patterson is actually sentenced to 1 year in jail.
Oh. Does he actually have to serve it, though?
Let's just celebrate the fact that he was sentenced.
All right.
For now.
All right. Take the win.
That's a win. At least he was afraid that he was going to have to go to jail. But you're right. He never sees the inside of a jail cell. So remember the vice president who was fired for trying to bring coffee back to the sales meetings? He is a key witness for the prosecution. So he almost gets what he wanted to put John Patterson behind bars.
Good for him.
So close. Must have felt really good. But yeah, of course, it never comes to pass because in late March of 1913, 10 inches of rain washes into the Great Miami River in just a handful of days. The levees near Dayton break, and the entire city is flooded up to 20 feet in some places of
Oh,
water.
wow.
Yeah, it's a bad one. There's like people stranded on the upper floors of buildings, on bridges. Lots of homes get washed away. It's a bad scene. So this gives John Patterson one last chance to use his superhuman management skills for good before he goes to prison, and he takes it. He converts his factories into emergency shelters and Red Cross headquarters. He organizes his workforce to build hundreds of rescue boats. He just like, all right, we're building boats now instead of cash registers. And all told, efforts under Patterson's direction probably save thousands of people stranded by the floodwaters in Dayton, which is rad.
Yeah, objectively a good outcome.
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem. That's great. It's somebody had to, like, boats don't build themselves, and if boats need to be built, it helps to have somebody who can like who can like authoritatively tell all these people to build boats. I think that, and like where to go and what to do with the boats. So like that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now another thing Patterson does during the Great Dayton Flood, and this is the real masterstroke, is he tells the Associated Press, "Hey, you guys need a field office here, right? Why don't you use my building as your field office? There's a cafeteria, there's showers, we've got ventilation now."
600 bathtubs.
Yeah. It's a great move. He's like, "You should use my factory because it would be the perfect place to sit and write articles about how many people I'm personally saving from this flood." And so there's this national, like, full court press of free news stories about how selfless and heroic John Patterson is, and also, how handsome he looks on horseback. And it's likely, although we don't know for sure, but it seems likely that all this public goodwill had a lot to do with why in 1915 Patterson's conviction is overturned and he doesn't have to go to prison after all.
Of course it was.
Yep. Yep. I think he should have gone to prison, and not just because of the antitrust stuff, because I think he would have run the most efficient gang that prison's ever seen.
And they would have all been so clean. I mean, if anyone could have convinced the guards that the prisoners needed 5 showers per day, I feel like it would have been this guy.
Yeah. Ah, man, we've been beating them with clubs, but you just told them that it was going to make them better able to use their 5 human orifices for smuggling contraband. Yeah, they'd be smuggling 50 baked potatoes a week into Patterson's cell. So Patterson lives out the rest of his life in Dayton, dies in 1922 at the age of 77, which is pretty old. Per the National Institutes of Health, adult life expectancy for Patterson's generation was about 60 years.
Oh, wow. Must have been all those baths.
Yeah, it was that fifth bath. So yeah, Patterson's dead, and for the next half century, cash registers are how basically all brick and mortar shops handle transactions. Like, everybody has cash registers, as we know. But by the 1970s, they start to get replaced by point of sale systems.
Or as we call them, pieces of shit.
We sure do. This episode was originally going to be about POS systems with a short section on cash registers at the beginning. But then I started reading John Patterson's Wikipedia page, and like, the next thing I knew, it was 3 days later, and I'd written 8,000 words about John Patterson, and my wife was packing her suitcase. It was like,
I mean, these things happen.
yeah, POS systems like are different because they ring up the price. You don't code in the price with your fingers. The machine, you scan a barcode, right, and then the machine calculates what the price is based on a database. And it's not hard to understand why these systems supplanted the cash register. They're faster. They're less prone to error. They can be hooked into your inventory so that you can like automatically order things before you need them. And as we talked about in episode 19 on Marty, this creepy supermarket robot, POS systems let retailers start doing this thing where they're like constantly tweaking the prices of everything,
Mm.
which lets them squeeze out a few extra cents of profit here and there, and then use that slight edge in profit to drive their competitors out of business and create food deserts.
I was thinking about, I heard that in some stores they're starting to do this thing where you don't actually see a price tag anymore. You just have to like scan a QR code and then an app at like the cash register point will tell you how much it is so they can
Hell
tweak
yeah.
them even more, which is just so skeezy.
Yeah. And they can also fire the people that whose job it is to change the price tags every morning.
Yep.
Awesome. Hell yeah.
What
I
a
love
time to be
automation.
alive.
So cash registers do go away, but they don't go away all at once. You're about the same age as me. You probably remember seeing cash registers around still in the in the 90s and 2000s, right? There were cash registers places,
Yeah.
bake sales, local grocery markets, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
I worked at a goth club in high school and we had a cash register. Not one of the like cool,
hell
vintagey,
yeah.
pretty kinds, but just like the, shitty plastic whatever.
Was it black?
It was not, which was really a missed opportunity.
Yeah. So cash registers are like used for cases where, like a goth club, where simplicity is more important than scale.
Yeah. Don't need a database to keep track of the, beers and dollar sodas you're selling.
Right. Right. Now there's a Square app, so cash registers are almost fully extinct. You don't even need cash registers for that. For that use case anymore, because you just have like a little thing that you plug into your phone's audio jack and you can swipe cards with it. So the cash register went the way of the 8-track and the rotary phone. Patterson's legacy has never stopped expanding, though, because B2B sales is an industry now that employs 2 to 3 million people in the US alone. In other words, around 1 in 100 Americans works in B2B
Oh
sales.
God. That's
Yeah.
that's horrifying when you put it that way.
Yeah, it's very stark. And that's not even the only modern American industry we can thank John Patterson for, because if you look at all the sales techniques that NCR pioneered, the big rah-rah sales kickoff, the norm of life and soul devotion to the product line, the pyramid of completely interchangeable, polite, well-groomed young people. These are the basic ingredients that, after simmering for half a century, start to give us companies like Amway and Mary Kay and Cutco and Herbalife.
Though I guess do places like that give you the same like healthcare and worker benefits that try and like hold you in the way that like I don't know, every modern startup tries to entice you with a beer fridge?
No, absolutely not. I mean, if you win the sales contest, which you will not,
You will
but if you
not.
do, then you get a bunch of fancy stuff, right? But it's all in service of who sells the most. And John Patterson invented parts of that, but like his salespeople were getting 50% commission in the early days,
Oh wow.
which is unheard of, right? He didn't. He I can't. I'm not saying John Patterson invented the MLM, but he invented like all the ingredients for the MLM, and it just took about 50 years for them to get put together into something more nefarious. So in the end, neither cash registers nor point of sale systems ever did solve the problem James Ritty set out to solve way back in the 1870s with his incorruptible cashier, right? We know this because in 2026, bar owners still notch their liquor bottles sometimes to try to catch their employees stealing. They're still doing the same thing they were doing in the late 1800s.
We invented MLMs for nothing.
Right. There's so many ways to steal that the cash register never did it and never could fix. Sweethearting, obviously, when you give your friends discounts that they're not actually entitled to, that's called sweethearting. No hunk of steel is going to fix that. Another thing you can do is simply, if you're working at a bar, let's say, you can claim that a drink was returned when the customer actually paid for it, void out the sale, keep the money. Free money. If you don't do it too much. Then there's the old phantom bottle where the bartender brings their own bottle of liquor and pours drinks out of that, and then they pocket the markup from the bar, which is clever. That's good. My favorite, you know how sometimes a hotel will leave a couple like complimentary drink tickets in your room?
Yeah.
Well, if you check out without using the tickets, and the housekeepers will sometimes grab up those tickets that are unused and they'll sell them to the bartenders.
Oh.
Right? And then the bartender puts a few tickets in the cash drawer just as like had been used by a customer, and they pocket the corresponding cash that would have been paid for those drinks otherwise, and free money.
Nice.
These which is great. I think people should do that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. These are the kinds of things that are just as invisible to a modern POS system as they would have been to James Riddy in 1875, which just shows that no matter how much capital the owning class dumps into their technological systems to control the body, like the cash register, they can never stop workers from stealing profit. And I think that's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's a little note of hope, note of hope to end on, because like profit theft is not theft. It's just workers clawing back part of the alienated value of their labor time. It's taking back the money that was stolen from them by exploitation. Marx wrote in Volume 1 of Capital, "It would be possible to write quite a history of the inventions made since 1830 for the sole purpose of supplying capital with weapons against the revolts of the working class." Now, Marx died in 1883, the same year James Riddy filed his initial patent for the incorruptible cashier. So he never got to see these things. But I like to think that if he had ever gotten to see one and hear that cheerful sound of the little bell, he would have done exactly what John Patterson did in front of that factory tour group. Smash that thing to bits with a goddamn mallet. So thank you, Daniel. This has been fantastic. You've been the perfect guest for this. What do you think about cash registers? Are you pro, anti? What are your thoughts?
All I'm thinking right now is what is that little saying? Boss makes a dollar, I make a dime. That's why I smash up the cash register with a hammer on company time.
That's why I pour acid into my boss's machines.
That's why I mess with the temperature of his bath so it's 2 degrees warmer.
Oh boy. What a dude.
What a dude.
I think somebody should write a book about the connection between like this obsession with order and profit and the obsession with like the perfecting the body. Like a Brian Johnson, I feel like is in the same vein as a John, Brian Johnson. He's that billionaire who is like obsessed with longevity. Maybe there's many of them are, but he's specifically always going on the news to talk about how he's measured every aspect of his life, and they made a documentary about him. He takes like 30 pills a day that regulate all of his bodily functions so that he can live longer, and he hopes to live forever.
It's all very dystopian. I feel like there's a lot of good, like, unpleasant sci-fi stories in there about this desire to try and like control the body into this robotic thing that doesn't do anything that you don't ever want it to do. Like I read something about how GLP-1s, like the Ozempics and whatnot, are tamping down on desire, and not just the desire to eat, but the desire to for anything. Like people just don't want anymore, and that is just kind of horrifying to me. Like you're taking away the joy of what it means to be a weird, messy human creature in pursuit of what?
Yeah. In pursuit of what? That's a great question for the listeners to think about until we come back next time for Technology Blows, which is going to be an episode on the guillotine, which is coming out on Bastille Day for everybody out there. So look forward to that. Thank you, Daniel, for helping me make a small contribution to that ongoing people's history of weapons of the capitalist class against the worker.
Thanks for having me.
You sure you don't want to do any plugs?
I'm going to once again plug go do something fun, eat a tasty treat, and don't feel bad about it afterwards. And don't take a fifth bath about it. Put salt and pepper on your
Yeah.
baked potato. Go nuts.
Yeah,
Live a
and
little.
please do not eat more than 2 baked potatoes a day. Please. Yeah, I'm going to plug chaos. Pour acid in machines.
Hit them with hammers.
Hit them with hammers. Do just like fuck them up. That's my plug. All right, well, then that's it. That's Technology Blows. You should like and subscribe this channel on YouTube. You should follow Tech Blows on TikTok. And you should tell all of your cool friends about this cool show that you found because they'll think you're cool. Thank you for listening. See you next time on Technology Blows.